Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Big Group and I am Muhammad Febriawan Asoleh.
I am Rini Kurniasari.
And I am Stasia Putri. We will present our material. The title is Nasals and Other Consonants. And happy learning! Okay, I wanna present about nasals. Nasals are a type of language sound produced by closing the airways in the mouth so that air escapes through the nose. And in linguistics, nasals belong to the consonant category as they involve the obstructions of airflow in the vocal tract. Here I will present it about two nasals. The first one is bilabial or ram. To produce the sound, the two lips must come into contact with each other, blocking the airflow from the mouth and directing it through the nose as the nasal cavity is open. The sound is called a bilabial nasal, where vocal fold vibration is required to produce the sound. The bilabial nasal can be found in all positions at the beginning, middle, or final position. For the example is
Both my lips are closed when forming the sound. So if both my lips are closed, that means the air cannot escape through my mouth. Instead, the air escapes through the nose. And that is actually why we call it a nasal. See what happens when I pinch my nose. Oops, the sound stops. And that is because the air cannot escape anywhere. My mouth is closed, my nose is closed, so there is no way to produce that sound. It stops. That is why this sound is called a nasal sound, and that is true for all three of them. We can practice and try that out later for the other two as well. So both lips are closed, the air escapes through the nose, and, important, vocal cords vibrate because is a voiced sound. Yeah, very clear vibration here from my vocal cords. Now, this is a sound that actually exists in most languages, a very common sound. That's probably why our first word is often ma or mama or mom, which is what we call our mothers. And that is because it's a quite easy sound to make. So here are some words containing the sound in English. We have mother, summer, them. So you can see the sound in the different positions in these words. And the typical spelling is either just the letter M or sometimes also the letter double M. So you can have both spellings and they're usually represented by the sound
Okay, the second one is alveolar or run. The essence of this explanation is that to produce the sound, the airflow is blocked by the tip of the tongue in contact with the alveolar ridge and preventing it from exciting through the mouth. Instead, the air flows through the nasal cavity and exits through the nose. Vocal fold, vibration is also required to produce the n sound, which is called an alveolar nasal. Okay, for the example is here.
How is formed? First of all, the lips are a little bit open. So it's not full closure like with the first nasal. Lips are a little bit open. Secondly, the tip of the tongue touches just behind our teeth. So just behind your teeth. But there's not a sudden release like we would have with t, where the tongue actually is in the same position. Instead, we keep the tongue there and the air escapes again through our nose. And if we do our little test again, again, it's a nasal. Definitely, the air escapes through the nose and our vocal cords vibrate because all of our three nasals are voiced consonants. Let's have a look at some example words for We have, for example, the word no, funny, can, and also in the word ni. All of those words contain the nasal and the typical spelling is N, double N, or sometimes KN, but the K is silent, so the sound is just We don't say kn, no, just You know that, for example, the word know, I know something, ni, knowledge, etc. There are quite a lot of words actually in English with the spelling pattern KN. The K is always silent and we simply form the nasal And there's always contact with the tip of the tongue behind your teeth. Air escapes through the nose. Now this is important to remember because we're going to have a look at our last nasal, and if you only hear this, especially through a microphone, you might think they are identical, but they're not. And if you cannot hear the difference, hopefully you will feel the difference when producing the sound. So remember, our second nasal, the tip of the tongue had contact just behind your teeth.
The velar nasal is a consonant sound found in many languages around the world. And here I will explain about the velar nasal itself. The first, articulatory properties. Type of sound, nasal consonant, that is, air comes out through the nose during articulation. And velar nasal are produced by touching the back of the tongue or dorsum to the velum or softly. And the way of articulation is the flow of air is completely inhibited in the mouth or due to contacts between the tongue and the velum, but is released through the nose. And or nasal velar is phased, meaning that the vocal cords vibrate during articulation. The second is distribution in language. Or nasal velars appears in many languages around the world, including English, Indonesian, and other languages. In Indonesian, nasal velar is separated by letter or ng and can be found at the beginning, middle, or the end of the word. For example, if at the beginning there is ga and nganga, and in the middle there is a bangun and tangga, while at the end there is bang and tenang. In English, nasal velar usually appears at the end of word or before other velar sounds, such as sing or bang. The third is phonetics and contrast. Or nasal velars can function as a separate phoneme or phone depending on the language. In Indonesian, is a separate phoneme because replacing it with another sound such as N or K can change the meaning of the word. Whereas in English, or nasal velar often appears predictively before volar consonant such as K and G and do not appear as independent sound at the beginning of word. For example, let's look at the video after this.
So here, we have to move our tongue back because this nasal is formed at the back of our mouth. And you can see this in the diagram. I pointed to the place. You can see our tongue, quite a big muscle. And what happens is the back of the tongue comes up and makes contact here with the soft palate. And actually it forms closure here. So My mouth is open. The tongue, the back of the tongue moves up, forms a closure with the soft palate. The air, again, escapes through my nose, and the vocal cords vibrate. Mm. Mm. So it's quite a different experience, and it feels different forming this nasal compared to the second one, where the tip of our tongue was touching just behind our teeth. That is not the case with this nasal sound. My tongue, the tip of my tongue is actually free. There's no contact. It's right at the back of my throat, of my mouth. And again, we can do our little test. The sound stops because it's a nasal. Air definitely escapes through our nose. And vibration, definitely a voiced consonant, a voiced nasal sound, and the official description is it's a voiced velar, nasal velar, because that is the place where it's formed. Let's have a look at some example words. Some words containing are sing, thing, bring, going, and think. Now, you probably noticed that they all share the same spelling pattern. There are always two letters involved. We have the letter N followed by G. And in our last example, we have N plus K. The K here is actually pronounced think. But in all the other words, N, G, the G is not really pronounced. We don't say sing. It's just sing, sing, thing, bring. So both of those letters together form this nasal, this third nasal with the little tail. Sometimes people also call it the NG sound because the spelling is usually NG.
The next material is the consonant A. The consonant A is a sound that has many roles in the phonology of various languages. The following is a more complete explanation of A from a phonological point of view. The first, articulatory. The type of sound of this consonant is lateral, that is, the air flows through the side of the tongue. The differentiates it from other sounds which usually fall in the middle of the tongue. The place of articulation of the consonant L is called alveolar, produced with the tip of the tongue touching the alveolar ridge, or the gum behind the upper teeth. And the way of articulation is called approximant, meaning minimal air resistance, so the sound softer than other consonants, such as plosives. And consonant L is also vibrating, aka it is produced by vibrating the vocal cords. The second is distribution and variation. The consonant A is present in various positions in words. If at the beginning there was a lampu and lupa, if in the middle there is jalan and kelas, and at the end there is mau and kawal. Whereas in current languages such as English, A has allopons, that is clear and dark. Clear at the beginning of the word, for example, light. Pronounced with the front of the tongue raised higher. The second is dark at the end of word or before a consonant, and for example, full. Pronounced with the back of the tongue slightly raised towards the velum, full. Language like Indonesian generally only have clear L without variation in feralization. And for example, let's look at the video after this.
I think is quite an interesting sound because of the way it's formed. So let's have a look at it in more detail. So if you want to form the sound your tongue needs to touch the alveolar ridge. So the difference here is that there is contact. That's very different to r, but also the air flows on the side of the tongue. Okay, so it's released past the sides of the tongue And that is different because I told you before that when we form the nasal we also have contact in the same place, but the difference here was that the air actually flows out through the nose, which is why it's called a nasal. But here that is different. The air flows out on the side because it's only the tip of the tongue that touches behind your teeth. Yeah, so it's only the tip of the tongue on the alveolar ridge, and the air flows out on the sides. And in comparison, r, there was a bit of movement also with r that we just had before, and there was no contact, but here, clear contact. The tip of the tongue has clear contact with the alveolar ridge. Let's have a look at some example words. And the special word, of course, what do we call l? It's a voiced lateral approximant. Sometimes people just call it a lateral. It's a bit shorter and easier. But here are some example words. For example, long, left, tall, rolling. So the first two words have l at the start, long, left, and I would suggest you practice those first if you find l difficult or you can't really hear the difference between l and r. So long, left. You can also exaggerate a bit and say it louder and longer. Long, left, and really make sure there's proper contact here. And then we put it at the end of the word, tall, tall. Ooh. So here the l is at the end, is a bit shorter maybe. And then in between, rolling, rolling, rolling. That makes me think of a song here. Rolling. So in the middle, make sure that tongue goes all the way to the front and touches behind your teeth. If it does not touch, it will sound like r, and it's roaring. That's not the right word. Rolling, rolling. It's a bit of movement here for the tongue. You have to become a bit faster, and maybe the tongue, this is a new movement for your tongue. But I promise with enough practice, it will become easier.
Okay, the next material, the definition of consonant R. The consonant R is one of the consonant sounds in English. Commonly referred to as a rhotic sound. This sound is produced by vibrating or bringing the tip of the tongue close to the roof of the mouth without touching it, creating its distinct sound. The consonant R is often found at the beginning, middle, or end of words. In phonetic, the consonant R sound belong to the approximant category, which refers to sounds produced by bringing two articulatory organs close together without causing significant friction. Explanation of how to pronounce the consonant R. Tongue position. The tip of the tongue is slightly raised toward the back of the roof of the mouth without touching it. Mouth position. The lips are slightly rounded depending on the word. 3. Airflow through a small gap between the tongue and roof of the mouth. And 4. Vibration. There is no vibration in the vocal cord, but the sound produced is resonant. Okay, this demonstration to understand to the consonant R. To help understand how to pronounce the R sound, you can use the following method. 1. Using a mirror. Stand in front of a mirror and observe the position of your tongue. Make sure the tip of your tongue does not touch the roof of your mouth but is closer to it. Practice simple words. Repeat words containing the R sound, the beginning, middle, and such as red, carrot, and car. Example of words with the R sound. Here are some example of English word containing the R sound. R sound at the beginning of word: red, rain, rabbit, ring, right. Okay. The R sound in the middle of words, and carrot, hurry, orange, mirror, and parent. Okay, the consonant R. Consonant R sound at the end of words. Example: car, star, beer, fear, and year. This example of the consonant R word. Okay, practice tips. One, repetition. Repeat the words above slowly, focus on the position of the tongue and the sound produced. Two, combine with sentences. Create simple sentences. For example, the rabbit runs in the rain, and I saw a car near the star.
Now, R is formed because the tongue comes close to the alveolar ridge. Now, the alveolar ridge is the little bump just behind your teeth, at the top of your mouth. So we've got our teeth, and just behind here we've got, I would call it a little bump. It's quite hard, and that is what we call the alveolar ridge. And our tongue, for example, touches that part when we say the sounds n. Yeah, the nasal n in no or November makes contact with the alveolar ridge. That is the place that I'm talking about. Now with r, the tongue comes close, but it does not touch. And that is very, very important to remember. There's no contact here, unlike the other approximant we're going to talk about next. So it comes close, and r is a little bit difficult for some learners to say, and that is also because the tongue, I would say, curves a little bit in the mouth. R. So it comes close to this ridge, but it is also curved a little bit. I would say almost a bit like a spoon. R. But very important, there is no contact when we form the sound r. And r is also called a voiced alveolar approximant. Alveolar because that's the place where it is formed in the mouth, and you can see the arrow pointing to that place in the diagram. R. We're going to come back to r later again. Let's just have a quick look at some words containing r. We have run, very simple verb, run, right, wrong. So two opposites here, right and wrong, both start with a r sound, and also bring. Now, right, run, wrong, they all start with a r sound, although wrong has a silent w at first. But in bring, it is actually the second consonant. So we have b and r together, a consonant cluster here. Bring, br, br. So practice that a little bit. Yeah, run, right, wrong, bring, br, bring. Very good. I can't hear you, but I'm sure you sound fantastic.
Okay, the next material, the definition of the consonant w and y. First, consonant w. The consonant w is one of the sounds in English known as a glide or semi-vowel. This sound is produced by bringing the upper and lower lips close together while rounding the mouth, followed by a smooth flow of air. Although it may be resemble a vowel, w is classified as a consonant because the articulars are actively involved. Next, consonant y. Consonant y is also a glide or semi-vowel. This sound is produced by raising the middle of the tongue close to the roof of the mouth, approaching the position of the vowel E, but without fully pronunciation it of vowel Y often sounds like the Y in the word yes. Yes. Explanation of how to pronunciation consonant W and Y. How to pronounce W. 1. Lip position, but lips are rounded. The pause push slightly forward without fully closing. Airflow the smoothly through the mouth. Vibration, the vocal cord vibrate during pronunciation, producing a resonant sound. Okay, how to pronunciation yeah. Tongue position, the middle of the tongue is raised close to the roof of the mouth. Mouth position, the mouth is slightly open and air flow out smoothly. Vibration, the vocal cords vibrate since yeah is a voice sound. Okay, this demonstration to understand consonant W and Y. For W, you can practice with a mirror, stand in front of a mirror and observe the shape of your lips. Ensure your lips are rounded without fully closing. And sound practice pronunciation is a food that it glid w sound, for example, oh, w. Okay, for Y, practice with tongue. Feel the middle of your tongue approaching the roof of your mouth without touching it. Sound practice pronunciation is an C that clearly in Y sound, for example, E. Example of word with consonant W and Y. Okay, first example of word with W. At the beginning of the word, water, window, wonder, west, and wait. Okay, in the middle of word is forward, downward, and coward. Okay, the next example of words with Y. At the beginning of words, you example, yes, yellow, yacht, year, and yesterday. Okay, in the the next example, in the middle of words, million, onion, and opinion. Okay, that's it. Example for W and Y. You can practice tips. You want practice. Repeat slowly. Focus on the position of the articular lip for W and tongue for Y. 2. Use sentences for W. The window is wide open. The water is cold. For Y, yes, the yellow yacht jumped yesterday. With regular practice, you will become more fluent in pronunciation these two sounds.
How is W formed? Now, you can actually see that when you look at me. W, W. We form W by using both our lips. They come close, but there's no full closure. W. So they come close and then we'll release them and spread our lips a little bit. W. And the back of our tongue is raised at the velum, that is in the back of the mouth. W. And you can see in the diagram I put 2 arrows to point to the lips and to the back of the mouth where the velum is. W. And remember, of course, our vocal cords vibrate. W. Let's have a look at a couple of example words, but for those of you who are studying phonology, this might be important. W is also called a voiced bilabial velar approximant. If you're just learning English to speak English, you can forget about that word again. It's quite long and difficult. Now let's have a look at some example words. For example, we have what, would, question, one. The first 2 words are quite simple. Both times the sound W is represented by a W. Looks exactly the same as the sound symbol, W. Now the next word, however, question, here we have the spelling QU. It's also quite a common spelling pattern, and QU always forms a K, W sound in English. So both of them together, Kw, question. And there are many other words starting with QU in English. And the last word, one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, W, one. Here the spelling is an O. It's not as common, but there are some words that are spelled with an O, and the O letter is represented with a W sound. Now, how is Y formed? Y is formed because the tongue comes close to the roof of the mouth. It sounds a bit funny. You probably never knew that your mouth had a roof. Now that is simply the top, and it's sort of in the middle of the mouth as well. So the tongue comes close here to the roof of the mouth, Y. And if you just say it and pay attention to what your tongue does, Y, Y. As I can feel how my tongue is elevated in the middle of my mouth, Y. And then, of course, the vocal cords vibrate because this is a voiced sound. And we also call this a voiced palatal approximant. Palatal because that's the place in the mouth where the tongue is elevated. Let's have a look at some example words with the sound Y. We have, for example, the words yes and year. Both of those have a Y that is really represented by the Y, and that causes quite a lot of trouble when people start transcribing because they get all muddled up with these two. So Y, yes, and year, and there are many words starting with Y where the Y is a Y sound. But we also have a few other words, few. So here we have EW, and I've written it down in phonemic transcript so you can see that that is actually a Y and an U together here, few. And then the last word is fuel, fuel, what we put in our car to make it move, unless it's an electronic car, of course, fuel. And here also we have a Y, U sound. So I'll just say all four words one more time. Yes, year, few, fuel. And if you find that sound difficult, make sure you practice a little bit.
Okay, that's all about our material. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See you.